Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Tucson channel. Thanks for joining us here once again. It is April, and it is McQueen month. During our clans calendar, 1 month, one clan, all throughout the year, all the Clanhattan clans. And with me today is Jacob Queen from Athens, Georgia, in the United States. He's had his nose to the McQueen Trail for a long time now. He's agreed to come on and share what he's found with us. Um, I think we probably all know there's two trails you can follow these days, the genealogical records and writings and family, histories type of trail, and the DNA studies, which are also quite helpful. And sometimes they overlap, and sometimes I suppose they don't. Thanks for joining us, Jacob.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Your surname is Queen, and I'm learning more and more through what you do that are talking to you that that's one line that seems to just not be haphazard. Some people dropped it and some did, and it's an actual line you can follow.
Yes, there's quite a few Queen lines. A lot of them have dropped the Mac
Hmm.
from the Anglicization over the years from the colonial period
Right?
and the demonization of the Irish during the 1800s. And
Okay.
then there's also a lot of the Quinn families that were already known as just Quinn before they immigrated over here. And when
Yes,
they anglicized their names were quickly just put as just Queen without a Mac.
I see.
Mhm.
I get you.
Yeah,
And
there's quite a variety of them.
is there, right? I know that like you say, demonization of the Mick or Mac, I guess stigma is really what it was, part of this.
Unfortunately, yes, the English had their ways. The victors like to write the history books, but we like to keep our stories and our histories written down, and we will make sure that we will keep up with all of our clans. I think that the Queens and the Sweens and the Quins all share some rich history together as Galloglass warriors. For example, this artistic depiction behind me is
Yes,
a Galloglass warrior from
yes.
the 1300s, probably, or 1400s. And I've been studying my McQueen history. My McQueen histories come from John McQueen, a Covenanter from the ship Henry and Francis of 1685.
Oh,
He
yes.
set foot in America in Maryland, but we've immigrated down through North Carolina and settled here in Georgia with the Walton County McQueens. And I think that from what looks of our DNA studies, my line matches with most of the other McQueens and Quins who come from the Isle of Skye. And what's interesting is how it lines up and matches with many of the other groups in the Clan Sweeney and even the O'Quinn studies. It's very interesting to see how certain groups overlap or completely miss each other, kind of like you were saying.
Right. So Quinn does come
Think
into it here and there. Quinn.
Yes, yes, it sure does. So there's some rich history of O'Quinn's in Ireland. There's about four different septs. Let me see if I can find my paper on it. O'Quinn is one of the most numerous Irish surnames and among the 20 most common. It comes from four different main septs, two in the north, from which the tribal names of Unio come have long associated with them with the Gwens of Antrim, and the other clans associated with Tyrone. These septs claim descent from Coin, a great-great-grandson of Niall of the Nine Hostages, who became over time one of the great fighting forces of the O'Neills in the wars against the English.
Hmm.
The third main group of the Quins is from Leinster and were a very important sept, often called the Quins of Annally or of Rathclinn Castle in County Longford. They are cousins with the O'Farrells and were put out by the O'Farrells in the 1400s. And those O'Quins ended up taking refuge in Northern Ireland and got involved with more of the Galloglass ways during that time.
Right.
There's also apparently a fourth O'Quinn group in Ireland from the Castlebar area in County Mayo. Um, there is a major Dalcassian branch in Thomond, and they're trying to like figure out genetically the where it's originating from. There's not many left from that branch. It doesn't seem. So, but what's interesting is the ones from Antrim and the Glens in northeastern Ireland, those are the ones that I match up with the most. Us,
Okay.
the McQueens from Skye. And it turns out from my research with the McDonald's, who everyone knows as the Great Lords of the Isles,
Hmm.
they were a very rambunctious bunch throughout the Middle Ages. They were the literal progenitors of all of the Galloglass, pretty much. From what I can tell, uh, I'm pretty sure us McQueens from Skye might be a O'Quinn group from the Glens that was brought up during a marriage between Margaret Bissett and John Moore Tanister, which was one of the sons of John, Lord of the Isles from
Oh,
1380. Margaret Bissett, when she married John, apparently from the Bissett region, he received a dowry from her side of the family from Ireland of all of Rathglen Island and the Glens of Antrim. I believe that might be where our Planet Cuheen sept,
oh,
as it's known in Skye. I think that might be where it originated because it was found just within another 100 years without throughout all of the Clan Ronald North invading Skye and the southern East up into Northeast, where we end up finding the first records of the Skye McQueens, Finley, Gilroach, and uh, what is his name? Angus Moore, son of Finley.
ah, now I know. I think it was it yourself that sent me a message that said you couldn't believe that Ravon McMilmore was mentioned in conversation. Was that you?
Yes, I've been studying a lot about Roderick's side for a while because, for a long time, my McQueen ancestor, John the Covenanter, he didn't come from Skye from the records that we have of, which is very interesting that there's actually a Skye Coryboro connection that most people don't realize that there is.
Right. Huh.
Um, Roderick came from Moidart from the clan Ronald Gallaglasses, I believe,
Oh, is that right?
and from Amy McRory's side. Um, that's why his name was probably Rodri. It wasn't, Roderick is a poor Anglicization of it. You got to remember, this is back in the middle days of the Highlands.
Yeah.
It was at their peak.
Well,
Uh, his name was probably Rory,
right.
you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Are
Not
you?
Roderick. Yeah.
Huh.
He's a great figure. He was apparently trusted from the clan Ronald McDonald's through the marriage of uh, the Macintosh, what was it? Malcolm Beg Macintosh, the 10th of his ilk,
Yeah.
who
Tomorrow.
married who married Alan McDonald's daughter,
Yes. Mora or Moira.
Moira. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
When Roderick and his men traveled to Coryborough, they stayed there, they settled down, and they founded the Coryborough McQueens after a while. But it took them a good almost I think to the 1600s, really before it was known as the Coryborough McQueen. So it was a good 200 years.
Hmm.
In that time, there was really just known as the Clan Ravine. And what is Ravine anyway? A lot of people would think, again, if you just search those exact letters, it's going to come up almost like French, like Revenantism, but it's not. Again, it's got to be some kind of Anglicization of a Gallic word.
Hmm.
I've been studying the etymology behind it, and most likely it's Riven. It's the Gallic word driven, which normally is a word used for maidens and ladies of prominent stature. And back in the day, people would be known as a nickname for a common thing they've done that they were known for. Him and his people being great bodyguards, having commanded and led this lady over all of these miles from Moidart all the way to Inverness, where they settled over
Okay.
north of Coimbra. That would have been a big deal. And to these newcomers, uh, to the people that live there, these newcomers, they would have had to remember them by something that they've done in the past,
Okay.
such as this Revan. He was the bodyguard of the lady, Revan Du might have been his nickname.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure in many cases, even maybe not today, but even though you think your family's been in the region for as long as you can remember, and your grandfather, to some families, you're still newcomers, and oh, they're from away, they're from that, they're the ones that did that. They still remember that about you.
Exactly. Exactly. It's the small things in life that we hope to keep up with everything, all the details. But what's
Right.
interesting is after about 150, 190 years, you have mentions of a couple of other McQueens through the Macintosh monuments and other records. You
Mhm.
have some McQueens whom I've heard y'all mention before with the video with Tim, talked about the one McQueen that was very, very infamous in the Inverness region. William McQueen,
Yes.
he was a dean of Ascent. He was what he was infamous for was he was trying to not just be a minister and controller of one area like he was supposed to be, a dean uh, of Ross.
Mhm.
He was trying to go over to I can't remember where it was off the top of my head, but he was trying to go into other regions and he was taking people's houses and taking their stuff, making them like give him food and just put him up in his house, kind of like how the Galloglass would do back
Ah,
in the day.
okay.
If you study these Galloglass warriors, this is their fighting culture. This is their way. It's not going to show up.
Yep.
I've got this book here. It's a really great book. You've got to look it up. Or anybody that wants to read or learn anything about the Galloglass, get this book because you will learn a lot. This is how I got on the study to realize that the McDonald's are the progenitors of all three of the main branches of the first Galloglasses. The
Ah,
very first Galloglass we have on record was a dowry from the McRorys who where Amy McRory and the Clan Ronald, where Roderick come from. The
okay. Yes.
McRorys, 300 years earlier, they had the first Galloglass marrying to the O'Connor family in Ireland, and they gave them 160 men. Like it was just no problem. And that was back in the 1200s.
Wow. Now, it's wonderful to hear the word Galloglass, for me at least, intermingled with Clanhatton and all these other stories and histories I've been talking about for a long time now. It's fantastic because I knew that was in there somewhere, but no one ever says it. And
Yeah,
thank you for this,
no
Jacob. This is
problem.
fantastic.
That's got to be where some of it comes from
Hmm.
because again we were known as the great bodyguards for these bridal trains for these toshers as they call
Yeah.
it in the Gaelic. A tosher is a dowry.
All right.
Uh, so that was like one of the first ones between the McRorys and the O'Connors. Um, so that introduced some Galloglass into the McRory side, not just on the McRory side, but on the Clan McDowell side, which when they went to Ireland, their name was MacDowell with a W,
Okay.
but it's from Dougal, the first son of Somerled,
Oh, yes.
over Clan Ronald. From the Clan Donald itself, brothers of Angus Ugg, where Anya Kahane come from, we have the Kahane dowry warriors who come in the 1314 or so.
Hmm.
We have under Alistair, brother of Angus Ugg. He went on into Ireland under the subservitude of Edward the Bruce after Robert the Bruce and them. And they
Yes.
were invading with Ireland and working with them Galloglass wars against the O'Neills and the O'Briens for, I mean, a couple decades, back and forth, back and forth. I
Yeah.
imagine that might be another place that, some of these people might have come across the field from,
Yes.
even before we got down to Margaret Bissett 100 years later at 1400, year
Hmm.
1400, marrying John Moore. And then that's where for sure a clan from the Glens of Antrim come from. So there's a very rich place in the Isles of at least five or six different marriages of just the O'Donnells and MacDonalds McDonald's, all the different various forms of them, for example, however many there is, all marrying in with these Galloglass clans, mostly bringing people from Scotland to Ireland. Not really as much from Ireland back to Scotland, but there are some because you need retinue to bring, for the few marriages, like we just mentioned, where we just had Miss Bissett going to Scotland. So most of the Galloglass was active in the 1500s, and that was in the
Okay.
16th century, as we call it.
Hmm.
It's really just a matter of me tracking down that these clans in these earlier days around the Scottish Wars of Independence and a generation earlier,
Right.
that's when the true origins of most of these big clans come from. There was let me think, there was a Campbell, a McDonald somewhere that married into the Campbells. You know how many men they gave the Campbells? I mean, the Campbellmans gave the McDonald's
Hmm.
1,600 men,
Wow.
a whole 1,600 men as a dowry.
My goodness.
It's astounding. Because the way they would do it is it was just a matter of, okay, I have X amount of acres of land,
Hmm.
and I have X amount of different septs and names and men for sure, different villages on this land. My daughter's getting married. I've got to come up with a good dowry so that the new hunk papa on the other side of the family is going to be in good favor.
Right.
We're going to be in good favor. Pulls out two men from every one of his counties, every one of his villages. That means that
Okay.
they had like 800 different septs. That's crazy. The Campbells had a lot of power in the early 1300s.
I thought you were going to say they'd send a whole unit together that already knew each other, but rather than that, he would sample from a lot different
Yes,
ones.
that's how the Galloglass would do it. They would really just sample from across their entire field, such as the Dowry Warrior study that proved that some McQueens were in the original O'Kane uh, uh, warrior train in 1314, because they've done a genetic study that traces it down to I think it's the S588 SNP, which is
Hmm.
right under the S602 or S603 rather.
Uh-huh.
Those are right there with the rest of the O'Kanes. So they assume they could put together that. Obviously, maybe out of some of those people, some of them are going to be real O'Kanes, just like the rest of the Canes further on. And
Yes.
they've noticed that a lot of these similar ones that have branched off, they've have all of these other Galloglass names like the Queens, Moores, and Sweeneys. Uh, it's really astounding how the genetics have allowed us to really piece together everything so rapidly just in the past 15 or 20 years that it's come out.
Right. I can see where if they're forming a Galloglass unit, you really didn't want these guys to have a lot in common that they could go home about or something or anything about.
Right.
I mean, that's sort of a thing you want. You want them to have you in common and leadership only.
Precisely. You want the only thing in common to be your your loyalty.
Yeah, right. And they had some, we could spend three segments on this Galloglass. Oh my gosh. They had some,
I know,
they
right?
had attendants or something, I suppose, too. They say that at least. That they might have had an attendant warrior with each, or attendant for each warrior type of thing. A squire.
Yeah, that's one of the rules about the Gallagher that I think is why some more septs and families from Ireland come into Scotland at the time, not just before the Wars of Independence, but between the Gallagher times, was
Hmm.
because the constables were going over there fighting. The leaders called constables. They'd have
Oh, okay.
normally anywhere from 40 to 80 men under each constable. um, you would have constables going over there fighting, and a lot of them would lose many of their men. But you're over there in the middle of Ireland, and Ireland's been going through so much
Mm.
bloodshed between kin and kin for thousands of years that there's plenty of orphan boys tired of the farm life,
Uh,
tired of regular life, just willing to do whatever, just run away from home and just go learn the sword. And they would just pick up the trade. They called him a cairn,
hmm.
the Galloglass cairns.
Okay, I've heard that term.
Yeah, I think they would normally have 1 to 2 cairns per Galloglass and 60 to 80 Galloglass normally per constable.
Hmm, fascinating. Now, what in general are the haplogroups? If we can t touch on that, the Y-DNA haplogroups are. Is that something that's the right topic for us right now, or what do you think?
Yes, so in the Galloglass project, which has been extremely fun for me to look at, I not only see a little bit of like Sweeney DNA, but just obviously, like we were just speaking of, kind of like just genetics all over, just tier Owen genetics, people left over from the Ulaid that the Dalriada didn't get out, people from Connacht coming just from Munster, all over because of the period at the time. See, this is leading up right after Somerled and all of the Viking period. So we're at a period where there's a lot of west to east movement in Ireland because everyone's trying to group together over into the Isles and try to fight off this common foe in a sense. It's not like this great planned unification. At least that's what Brian Boru had in mind. No one else wanted to get behind it though, because we're all Irish and
Right.
got our angriness in us. You know, we like to fight. But what I find great about the Galloglass project is that there actually is a bit in here. There's one group called the Great O'Neill's Galloglass of Tyrowen, and there's actually some genetics in there that match up with some of the genetics in the O'Kane dowries.
Okay.
So that kind of makes sense. You know, it's kind of what you would expect. Then I think there's also if you look on the Galloglass DNA project on Family Tree, there's these other groups. I can't remember where it is. It's the one of Tyrconnell of O'Donnell's Galloglass. The Patrick Sweeney and James Sweeney lines, I am a DNA test related to on my 23andMe DNA that I secondhand uploaded to Family Tree to double check it.
Yep.
So I would assume our line that's from the Glens of Antrim is kind of like in with that one somehow, or
Hmm.
at least close to it, because it's like it's really close to it. It's not close to any of these other ones.
I see.
And then we have you also have McDonald's Redshanks, which from what I've seen of the Redshanks is you have career Gallagher who were like born into it of the true original Gallagher ways.
Hmm.
And then you have these people who like kind of took on the idea of Gallagher kind of like doing Viking raids because it had been going on for so long that it became a popular thing that people would just do for a season or two and maybe just quit.
Uh,
And these people would sometimes these Gallaglass was known as Red Shanks.
no, no, let me interject a question here if I can, Jacob. Uh, one of the questions I get a lot, and you might too, is that are McQueen's Norse? Are they? People ask me that all the time, and it's one of the things I usually say likely to, that most likely. Um, so in general, are we finding them to be when they were on Sky now, and not that I want to say that's less diluted or less merged, I guess, would it be? Are they I1? Are they R1A? Are they what are we talking about? And or is there a generalization you can even draw about McQueen's?
The vast generalization I could draw with the McQueen study, the McSweeney study, the O'Quinn and McQuinn's studies,
Hmm.
and even just the plain Queen study, because we have just a plain Queen, not McQueen.
Oh, good.
All of us mostly are R1B,
Ah,
M269. Now, there's a healthy variety of a couple other R1B groups, mostly south of L21, L21 being the finders of 10 over in like Cornwall, the first insular Celts, um, back during the early uh, corded ware culture period, about 4000 BC,
Hmm.
I mean 4,000 years ago.
We
We
see
do
that.
have a sizable groups of eyes that are assumed to be the you know the main group from Corybora, and maybe it is from the Coryboro line that we know of
Hmm.
that had Coryboro from 1594 and on, from William and Donald McQueen. The problem is we have an unbroken line of 200 years between him and Roderick. So how sure can we be on all of that just because we have a DNA connection with one McIsaac, which is what the DNA study seems to be trying to imply? I think it's a lot more of a strong theory that looking at these other connections between the cousin kindreds that were literally doing the same cousin kindred group thing of the Galloway,
Hmm.
that there's a much richer answer and much more diverse answer to this question we have of where we came from. It's not just Norse and it's not just Gallic. Unfortunately, this is the time of the Norse scales. This is the time of the mixed races. There's
Yes.
probably, in the Gallic culture of Ireland, you didn't really operate off of just like who's your daddy. It was really just who's your grandfather, even your whole Durfin, I think is how they say it in Gaelic. Your whole Durfin,
Hmm.
your entire grandfather kindred group of cousins is like your one clan, and that's like your most initial, like immediate clan. And if your most immediate clan is like that large, you can see how quickly these different family groups, especially all these like troubling times of warring like it was, how these DNA signatures can quickly get grouped up together simply because they fought together like true brothers would have.
Yep. Now, someone watching that knows a little bit about this, and I don't know a lot about it myself. I didn't mean to say that R1B can't be somewhat Nordic, and I1 is only Nordic, but that's some thinking nowadays that
Yeah, that's
I1
true.
I1 is usually nowadays classically thought of as Norse, but or whatever term you want to use. Um, Scandinavian, maybe some people blur all those words together, but so I don't mean to say that R1B, you probably know this more than I
Yeah.
do, can be from that north area as well.
Yeah, there are some R1Bs from Norway.
Hmm.
They're going to be like really far back because even R1B is so far back and it's like 30,000 years ago or more.
Yeah.
It's just unreal. That's why looking at the closer picture of everything, like most of us from the different Queen, Sweeney, Quinn, a lot of us are close to like the L21, DF13 and below. The DF13 and below groups are really just astounding where they are situated when you look at the SNP tracker, like the global tracker on the maps, and you look at where the SNPs are coming up at and found the most common at, and
Yep.
when you compare it to where ancient burials are like found at that also have those same SNPs,
Oh, I've seen
you're
this. Yes, yes.
finding a lot of congestion in the center of Ireland. I mean, like just north of Tara.
Huh.
So I don't know about you, but to me, it seems like the vast majority of all three of our lines were right there with the High Kings of Ireland, and we went with Dalriada over into Scotland.
Right. And
Whether we're Norse, Irish, it just depends on exactly which line you're on, you know?
right, the MacGurks founded Dalriada, they're thinking in 503, and came over and that kind of a thing. The MacGurk brothers, I
Yes,
think, the three sons of
yes,
MacGurk. Um,
yes. Fergus McGurk.
you can't say many things without saying those three brothers, and you really can't. They're the
Yeah,
hatchlings of a big
they're a great
nest
one.
of things that are hard to pull apart and put back together. But I see you've done a lot of that yourself.
Yeah, yeah, I have. Yeah, I've been studying this in my free time. just on and off for about 5 or 6 years now.
Yep.
What I find really interesting is another thing about our DNA and sky is a lot of people with my haplogroup down to BY182,
Hmm.
a lot of the nickels of the clan McNichol of sky of Scorybrick,
Yes.
they test as BY182. And if you look at their coat of arms, their armorial bearing, there are two yellow plated Galloglass warriors with bassinet helms, almost just like the figure behind me, both with
Yes.
a spear, and they're guarding the children of their coat of arms. And the McNichols are said to be one of the earliest groups that helped the McDonald's take Sky, and they've been intertwined with the McLeods of Lewis and Harris for forever. They have all kinds of stories between them and the McDonald's but it's basically through our Gallagher ways though that we helped them take the rest of Skye in 1539. What's really cool though is the connection between Skye to Coryboro. Like I was mentioning earlier though, my family apparently because the way the Skye McQueens they ended up after taking the rest of Trotternish Peninsula from the McLeods for the McDonald's,
Mm.
McDonald's gave them the lands of Rig to have and hold for a while.
Ah.
And that's where the main Skye McQueens come from this, and it's mainly a line of ministers. They had I think for 200 or 300 years, nothing but minister after minister, reverend after reverend, going through all the different forms of Christianity that the government was making
Yeah.
them jump through hoops to work through,
Right.
throughout all the years. They were trying to make it work. But we have a Donald McQueen, born around 1615,
Mm.
who is son of I think it was Hugh, and he is the Donald McQueen, I believe, that is parson of Petty, found in Coryborough, found during the Clang Hatton uh,
Oh, yeah.
bond signing. The one mentioned that was parson of Petty, because there was a Donald McQueen that was of Coryborough that was from there, and then there's Donald McQueen, a minister or a cleric who is there to officiate the legal document.
Yeah. Yes.
And this Donald McQueen supposedly had a John McQueen as a son who would line up to the right age and year period for my John McQueen that was the Covenanter that was brought to America. And he wasn't banished. He actually came willingly because some other McQueens he was with were being brought unwillingly. He supposedly, my ancestor John McQueen, I think to be the son of this cleric, Donald McLean, John left a written note of testimony of his anger with the English government and the crown at the time of how they were doing things with religion, and so he just left willingly and abandoned Scotland and came to the colonies with the rest of them.
And that was Argyll's rebellion, Argyll's uprising,
Yes,
correct?
that's right.
Okay.
Hmm.
Right.
So it's
Yes, there
probably
were
down in Argyle that we were down.
there were a lot of transportations, and he decided to go with. And very interesting, amazing, amazing work you've done, Jacob. I have to say that again and again. My gosh, we have to have you come back on at least twice. Oh my gosh.
Okay, sure thing. That sounds great.
Yeah, let's do this. Galloglass episode, whatever we want to call it. I mean, gosh. Um, yeah, Tim
The
Elgin is.
origins of the Galloglass.
What's that?
The origins of the Galloglass.
Indeed. What I haven't mentioned, I like to in our last minute or two here, is the Clan McQueen Society of America is starting up and already has. I'm going to be talking with Tim Elgin about that. He's in North Carolina. Jacob's in Georgia. I don't know if he's involved in this or not. To tell you the truth, I don't even know that. But our friend Tim is starting the Clan McQueen Society of America. So more to come on that. If you're a McQueen, please stay tuned and get with Tim. And let's get McQueen's name out there in the public where it belongs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let's
Along
get
with the rest of Clan Hatton.
right. Let's get the banner up there. So, well, thank you so much, Jacob. We'll be in touch
No
then. It
problem.
sounds
Thank you for
like.
having me, Ray.
Oh yeah, thank you so much for all the work you've been doing. And so get back to
No
it and
problem. It's for all of us.
get ready for the next one. What's that?
Oh, no problem. It's for all of us.
Indeed. Yeah, don't keep it under a bushel. That's correct. So, all right. Well, thank you for joining us in during McQueen month in April. And please stay on the trail and touch not, my friend, and please subscribe. Touch not.
That's not